Hello, good evening. You're watching News 360 from the News Hub live at Adesawikanda. I am Portia Gabo.
And my name is Alfred Okanse. Coming up in the bulletin tonight.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by...
Heads of private senior high schools say more than 10,000 workers will lose their jobs following the implementation of the free senior high school program. We'll tell you what they want government to do to stop the joblessness.
Meanwhile, Ghana Education Service has assured parents of visually impaired students of placement at their selected senior high schools.
University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, threatens to withdraw all teaching services from Monday.
Coming up in business, freight forwarders at the Tema port deny sabotaging paperless system.
And on international front, dusk to dawn curfew imposed in Abia State in Nigeria.
We have these and more, including a throwback to the debate on the free senior high school in 2012, coming up shortly. Do stay with us. In our very first story, the Conference of Heads of Private Schools says government is deliberately collapsing private senior high schools with a free senior high school policy. The association wants government, as a matter of urgency, reconsider granting private students free senior high school.
Government's free senior high policy excludes private senior high schools. Private senior high schools admit a chunk of students at the second cycle. The leadership of the Conference of Heads of Private Senior High Schools acknowledged the policy is noble but expressed worry about the implementation process. The group recalled that private senior high schools since 2005 have been actively involved in the computerized school placement system but were completely taken off this year. Members of the group argued this would take a toll on their businesses as 424,092 candidates out of a total of 460,941 registered candidates representing 92% have already been placed in public senior high schools.
Our point is that private senior high schools are not substandard schools. If we admitted the same quality of students as the top-tier public senior high schools, we will produce equally great results. If all private SHS close down, access to secondary education for over 50,000 students currently enrolled in private SHS will be jeopardized.
They affirmed more than 10,000 staff of private second cycle institutions risk losing their jobs if government does not reconsider its decision. The conference, however, presented some proposals.
We call on government to extend its policy on free SHS to cover students in private senior high schools also. The investment is in the Ghanaian child, not in the school.
The conference also urged parents not to follow blindly the free SHS program and enroll their wards in low-standard public senior high schools.
Let's now get a breakdown of private and public senior high schools in the country. We have a total of 294 private senior high schools as against 578 public senior high schools in the country. And at the regional level, in the Greater Accra region, private schools, we have 52 as against 39 for public senior high schools. So in the Greater Accra region, we have more private schools than public senior high schools. In the Volta region, 81 public senior high schools as against 16 for private senior high schools. Central Region for public senior high schools, 61 and private 35. In the Western Region for public senior high schools, we have 48 as against 17. In the Eastern Region, we have 82 public senior high schools as against 30 for private senior high schools. Let's continue with the regions. And in the Ashanti Region, we have 105 public senior high schools as against 44. Bonafo Region, 64 for public senior high schools and 46 for private senior high schools. In the Northern Region, we have 43 senior high schools as against 33. Upper West Region, 26 senior high schools for public and only 4 senior high schools for private. And in the Upper East Region, we have 29 public senior high schools as against 17 private senior high schools. So those are the regional breakdown. Alfred?
Great. I mean, so it gives us a clear, holistic picture of how the situation actually looks like. I've been joined in studio by Reverend Dr. James Amankwa. He's the CEO of Action Schools and a former financial secretary of the Council of the Heads of Private Senior High Schools. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. Now, it's clear that in terms of presence, you are all across the country. The numbers are telling that
yes,
there are a lot of you. Even in the Greater Accra region, there are more private schools
that is true
than public schools,
yes,
senior high schools.
Yes.
So what is your demand from government? What exactly do you want government to do?
In the first place, let me thank the government for the new policy, free education for all Ghanaian students. We also support it, even as private, how do you call it, private institutions in the country. People are thinking that probably we are fighting for ourselves as private heads of schools or private proprietors of schools, but that's not the case. Free education for all in the country. People who happen to come to private schools are also Ghanaians. And the truth is that you want to find out, the situation is that the program is to support those who are needy in the country. The government is giving free education. We thank you for that.
Okay.
But there are many people in the country.
I get the point. I'm asking what exactly you are demanding of government.
What we are demanding is that if it is free for all, then the students who happen to come to private schools must equally benefit from the national kit.
So you want government to also pay for the fees and other expenses of students who go to the private schools?
No, the argument is like this. It's likely that private schools have different charges for our fees.
Absolutely.
So if the government policy is to spend, let's say, 800 Ghana on each student for the term, then we are saying that the same amount should be given to all the students who are also coming to the private sector.
Rev, you see, the dynamics are pretty different here.
Okay.
You have government, I mean, public schools are supposed to provide for public good. Okay?
Yes, that is true.
You are a private school, a head of a private school. You have established your school. The motive essentially is to make profit in the process of delivering education.
That is true.
In the public school, the motive entirely is not profit. So if you want government to also be paying to you, then we could obviously be making a lot more.
No, you are not getting me right.
So help me out.
No. We are not saying the government should pay to us. Not at all. We are saying that government should equally help parents who are paying to the private sector. I'm a private man. Whether parents come, government comes in or not, we take our fees.
Okay. Did you engage the government prior to the implementation of this policy about these concerns that you were putting?
In a way. Because I personally didn't go. My PTA chairman met the Minister of Education on this issue. But excuse me to say this, even before the coming in of the free education, I personally have stood in and met the minister, that is Deputy Minister Chairman, if he's listening to it. I was even fighting for the government scholarship as well as the CMB scholarship. You have many farmers whose children happen to come to private school. Why? Because the standard of education at the villages there, the cocoa producing sectors, is not as better off as compared to that of the city.
So when you engage them, what was the response? What did they say they were going to do? Proud to the implementation?
Nothing concrete came out from that.
Okay, I will just hold him on a bit for me, Reverend.
Okay.
I've been joined via Skype by Mr. Peter Enti. He is the acting national coordinator of the Institute of Education Studies, a civil society organization in the education sector. Mr. Enti, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I'm sure you'll be following the concerns of the private senior high schools. We cannot just wish them away, can we? Because the numbers are telling. Their representation is across the country. We cannot say because of free SHS, so we do not mind them anymore, can we?
Yes, I think, good evening. I think it's important that we put things in right perspective, and I think we've asked the right question. You asked the right question by inquiring from your guest the level of engagement that they had with the government. It's important that we know this because it's like the call is coming later in the day. We at IFEST have said that what the private schools should have done was to first engage the government long before the progress or the introduction of this particular policy. By engaging the government, we meant that the private schools would have first decided to harmonize their fees. Because as he rightly said, the private schools charge different fees. And the fees that they charge is based on the quality of the teaching and learning that goes on in the schools. So if they wanted the government to support them, the first step that they could have taken was to harmonize their fees. And then after that, they would have pushed that during the placement, you see, because we have to just oppose their demands to what parents actually want, what parents want and what the government wants to offer parents. The government wants to offer free education for all parents, and the government has decided to do that for those who will be placed in public schools. Some parents might decide that they would want their children to go to a private schools. That is the decision of the parent. So during the selection process, there could have been an opportunity for them to push that there will be an indication somewhere on the form that you want to go to a public school or a private school, and if you are going to a private school, this is the cost implication. Then they could have then come and say that the government can pay the 800 Ghana cedis they are talking about, and then ask parents to pay the remaining. But as it stands now, that provision was also not made. So what they are pushing for is late in the day.
But you see, Ms. Auntie, you make the point about the fact that, yes, they could have stated that, where do you want to go to the private school? The students who are going to the private school are also Ghanaians. That's their argument, okay? They're Ghanaians. And then if we are going by the constitutional right of every child, which is also the MPP replicating it in their manifesto, that every child must enjoy free SHS. Senior high school, or that's primary education or basic education must terminate at the senior high school level. Then you would say that, the definition or the limit to the public schools then raises the question. Because, for example, look at the Mamfe Senior High School. They've posted 800 students there. The capacity of the school is able to take just 400. So there is that shortfall. Shouldn't we be looking at the private schools also taking up these numbers?
Exactly, but the question is, the choice to go to the private school is the decision of the parent. So if the parent decides that I'm going to take my child to the private school, then he should bear the cost, because the government is supposed to provide public goods, and the private sector is in to complement what is done in the public sector. So in as much as we agree with them that there's a lot of backlog at various schools and other things, we think that they should have pushed earlier than what they are doing now, because as it stands now, if the parent decides to take the child to the private school, the burden should be on the parent, because the government has stated his eligibility criteria, and that criteria covers those who will be placed in a public school. This call should have come very early during the discussion or the consultation process.
But is that not discriminatory? I mean, they still remain Ghanaians, don't they?
They are Ghanaians. But if I decide to attend Central University, I'm supposed to pay for that cost. And the one who decides to attend University of Ghana, Legon, will be subsidized by the government. And the two students are all Ghanaians. The fact that you are operating in the private sector, you get support from the government in terms of resources, teaching learning resources. You get some support here and there. But to ask that the government should bear the cost of you teaching the child in your school is completely
okay. Right, thank you. Ms. Auntie, I'm grateful for your time this evening. Pitanti is the Acting Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies. Reverend, you want to make a response,
yes,
but then he says it is too little too late.
That is not my problem. I started fighting...
You agree that they should have come a little earlier than now?
Yes, he's right in a way, but he got something wrong.
Which is?
Now, he's saying that the choice is in the hands of the parents as to go to private or public. That is wrong. The computer selection is such that they do it in a way that after they have completed with the public sector, then the leftover, they are pushed into the private sectors. And the situation is that we on the faith know that the policy itself is meant to help the poor parents in the country. But the government is ending up to help the rich in the country. If you ask me why, I will tell you that those who are getting the required rate are those who are attending the private sectors, private international schools. And these are people who can pay already from the basic sector. Those in the villages, the cocoa farmers, they are not getting even the required one, the cut-off point.
Okay.
So if somebody comes from a village who is a cocoa farmer, and he comes to a private institution, after the computer has praised that person, give me just a minute to finish this one. It is not now.
I just honestly, just because of time. Because of time. I mean, because the point has been made about the wholesale implementation of this policy. That there are various
people are opinions getting about it right.
That. But
can I get just 1 minute?
No, I mean,
I'm saying that we are not fighting for ourselves at private institutions. We are fighting for the parents whose children are coming there, so that you ease their burden. As for us, wherever they get the money from, it's not our case.
Reverend,
we take our money.
Thank you. We will take your money.
Yes.
Reverend Dr. James Amankwa is the Chief Executive Officer of the Action Schools, also the former National Financial Secretary of the Council of Heads of Private Senior High Schools.
News 360 Skype interview is brought to you by MTN. Everywhere you go.
Still stay with us. Meanwhile, authorities of the Special Education Division of the Ghana Education Service have assured parents of visually impaired students of placement at their chosen senior high schools. The assurance comes on the back of complaints by parents that their wards are yet to be placed for the 2017-2018 academic year.
In March this year, TV3 brought you a feature on visually impaired students who sat for the Basic Education Certificate examination. It's the new senior high school year, and we are back at the Okwapoman School to find out how these visually impaired students are faring in regards to their admission into the school. The Okwapoman School is one of the accredited schools under the Inclusive Education Program. On arrival, a handful of parents and their wards were going through the registration process for first-year students. However, there were no visually impaired students in sight. Speaking off camera, school authorities disclosed that these students are usually the last to be admitted.
What we normally do is that we compile their names after the placement has been done for the regular children, and then we send to this computerized school selection and placement system. I will ask them to be a little bit patient for us. They have just informed me that they will, at the end of this week, place them.
Not too far away at the Senior High Technical School for the Deaf, Mampong Ekwiapim, about 42 first-year students had already been registered. However, Of the 265 students officially placed at the school, only 102 are hearing impaired. It is worth noting that the school has the capacity to admit only 120 fresh students for this academic year. Kobuna Beidu is the Deputy Director of the Special Education Division of the Ministry of Education.
The problem is that most students do not know that some of our schools are schools for the deaf. So they choose as maybe the fourth choice. So if they don't get their first choice, second choice, and third choice, they are placed there. When you go to Ghana Service, secondary education, and you mention that you are hearing impaired and you've been placed in the ordinary school, or you can hear and you've been placed in a school for the deaf, it can be changed easily. So parents should not, panic at all.
He chastised parents and urged them to play a more active role in the school selection process.
Sometimes some of the students choose 3A schools, Achimota, Wegehe. So parents should go through it. They should be educated and have their awards to go through the proper things.
Still on the free senior high school program, let's get a reaction from Reverend Jonathan Bette. He is the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Education Service and joins us via phone. Good evening and thanks for your time.
Good evening, my sister.
Now, we understand some heads of senior high schools were invited over allegations of charging illegal fees. Is this the case?
Well, thank you very much. I have also heard this evening from my senior officer, my Director General, about the incident that they have invited some few people who are found in this action, and they are trying to interrogate them. And there are some also that we've taken notice of, and they will also be invited soon.
All right. And another issue has also been raised that some schools not allocating dormitories to boarders and asking them to rent private hostels. Has this come to your notice?
Well, officially, we haven't received any information about this, but I heard it through the media that this is what is going on, and we are trying to see how best we can address that issue. We are investigating on that issue also. And we're believing that it will not be long. We will get to the bottom of it.
How soon will this be? Because the free senior high school program has started. People are already in schools, and it has been raging on.
Right. Thank you very much. I believe it will not be long because we're trying to investigate, to find. It's not everything that we hear from people and have to believe. We need to find out. And I'm believing that by next week, we will come to the end of that investigation.
Okay, Reverend Mete, before you go, we understand over 400 students were turned away at the Manfi Senior High School as well. I'm sure you're also going to investigate this.
Sure, we have heard that one also, but unofficially. So this afternoon, I called the headmistress, but her line was not going through. I believe by tomorrow, I'll get her, and then we will see how best we can address that issue. If really the information had been a fact.
Okay, we'll also be waiting for the outcome of your investigations. Thank you very much, Reverend Jonathan Bette, as the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Education Service.
Still to come tonight. The University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, threatens to withdraw all teaching services from Monday. We'll bring you details of that tonight on News 360. Do stay.
You're still watching News 360. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Time for business. My name is Nanekia Mensah Bampa. Now let's head to the Tema Port and Matters Horizon. We understand that freight forwarders at the port have denied sabotaging the paperless system. Now they are asking government to set up a support center manned by the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority to address challenges.
The Three Freight Forwarders Association, made up of the Custom Brokers Association of Ghana, The Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders and the Association of Custom House Agents wants an immediate center set up for the transaction.
We want a very robust call center in place, manned by a senior officer. It should be a unit on its own, manned by an assistant commissioner. Even if they want to put a deputy commissioner, they're fine. So that when we ask questions looking at the end-to-end problems that we are having. We ask questions that this senior officer can escalate. If he has not got ready answers, he should be able to take our questions and run with it for solutions, because this is the only thing that can deliver the 4-hour clearance mandate that the Vice President has talked about.
Customs says after the 12 days of post-evaluation on the paperless port transaction, there is the need for vigorous streamlining measures. The forwarders again lamented difficulties in transmission of the customs clarification and valuation report. They also cited the change in the pre-arrival assessment reporting system to the new Ghana Integrity Cargo Clearance System as their biggest problem with the paperless system. Again, they spoke about the misalignment of the old and the new processes, resulting in the confused process and the slow pace of GPHA's billing system as some other challenges. They also debunked assertions that they are to be blamed for the challenges encountered.
To say that we are frustrating the system because of spurious presentations, that I thought was not on at all. One very good thing about this whole system too is that when you are presenting spurious documentation, because of the presence of the robust engine, you are immediately identified. So with all of these safety nets put in place, why do we want to go back into the analog stages and then find comfort in just throwing some of these things out and smearing all of us? It is bad.
We have been involved in the paperless system since day one on all the committees that were formed so that the policy will be formulated. Everything. We've been there. We've been through the trenches. So we really want this to come to pass. So why would anybody want to say that we are against it?
We are still trying to fight along and to make it better for ourselves. After all, if this paperless system comes in, there will bring some sanity into the system, and it will raise our integrity a bit more high.
In some more news tonight, President and Chief Executive Officer of International Fertilizer Development Center, Scott Angle, has entreated the use of technology in agriculture to maximize yields. Now, according to him, agriculture can turn around the economies of states and stress the need for countries to pay greater attention to the sector.
The International Fertilization Development Center, IFDC, is governed by an international board of directors with representation from both developed and developing countries. The 17-member board of directors meets once a year in the United States to review accomplishments and help set directions and goals for the next year. The 43rd meeting was held in Accra. The organization helps small-scale farmers in less developed countries to increase their agriculture productivity, generate economic growth, as well as how to manage fertilizer responsibly. IFDC works closely with local institutions, including USAID Feed the Future Ghana, Commercial Vegetable Sector Development in Ghana, and the WASH Project. President and Chief Executive Officer Scott Angle said many Ghanaian smallholder farmers have benefited from the organization.
In the long term, we want to help smallholder farmers make more money, have a better life. In the short term, we do that by aiding the entire value chain for agriculture. So we help with good quality seeds, and we help with fertilizer, and we help with irrigation and water, and we help think about policy. And then once farmers have produced more food, we help them think about how do you sell it? How do you market those new products? So we're in the entire value chain, but our ultimate goal is to help some very poor farmers have a better life.
He said IFDC has also been providing and supplying certified seeds for the farmers and alleged fears the seeds are not genetically modified.
The seeds that are being bred through conventional breeding processes and delivered to farmers meet all of the Ghanaian requirements to avoid their use. I have my own opinions about use of genetically modified seeds, and but we make sure we follow all country laws. We are helping farmers understand first what their problems are, why the crops don't grow as well, and then we will provide technological solutions to that. So more advanced or complicated fertilizers might be needed here in Ghana.
Scott Angle indicated there have been several training for farmers and stressed the need for the use of technology to enhance farming practices.
Now let's look at matters arising with the minimum capital requirement. Well, the Bank of Ghana has been charged to demand strict adherence from commercial banks to the timelines for the new capital requirements. This is expected to make the banking industry and the economy stronger. The central bank has announced new capital requirement for banks. The deadline set for this is December 2018, when all commercial banks are to recapitalize. Obeying strictly to the timelines has been mentioned as key to a strong banking industry and economy.
I believe the Bank of Ghana carefully thought through this and probably looked at what is available in other parts of the globe. But we know that it's going to be a very challenging period in the next 12 months, thereabout, with 35 banks looking around to see how they can meet those requirements. I believe that the market is going to be stronger. I believe the economy is going to be stronger. I believe that the industry is going to be stronger after we are able to migrate our way through this new capital requirement.
Some banks will have to merge if they are unable to raise the needed capital requirement. The central bank has further shown readiness to have discussions with banks if they go into measures or agree to acquisitions to enable them meet the minimum capital. Some banks say they are ready.
Traditionally, the smaller banks that will normally talk to the bigger ones. It's a man that needs help that will stretch out his hands, isn't it? So no small bank has stretched out his hands so far. But when those hands are stretched, I'm sure we'll look at them. We'll look at how beautiful the hands are before we give the handshake. So there have not been any conversation in that area yet, but we are open-minded.
Already, banking sector analysts have complained of the number of banks in the country. According to some financial observers, with about 8 banks already said to be distressed, the only option for these financial institutions is to merge. And in wrapping up, inflation for August is 12.3%, up by 0.4%, and an increase in petroleum prices due to soaring world market prices have been blamed for this. But economist Courage Marty says the current climatic changes in the USA won't impact on inflation. More in subsequent bulletins. That will do for the business segment tonight. My name is Nana Ikuya Mensah Brampa. Alfred and Portia, more.
So is the Hurricane Emma. All the deadly hurricanes are named after females. It's really something that has to be checked. But away from that, the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, has decided to withdraw teaching services from Monday. That is, if government fails to resolve the impasse at the University of Education, Winneba.
A Winneba High Court has scheduled October to deliberate and make a ruling on the issues brought before it by a resident of the community. The resident is praying the court to declare as illegal the position of the previous vice-chancellor. He argues certificates had been signed for graduates after the board's dissolution. Although the new board has been set up, it is yet to seek an out-of-court settlement for smooth academic work to take off. For more than 3 months, the issues are still pending before the court, while UTAG raised concerns on the impact of the misunderstanding on academic work. Currently, the National Executive Council of UTAG has agreed to withdraw all teaching services from Monday until government resolves the impasse. Dr. Harry Agbanu is the national president of UTAG.
We do research. We are involved in administration, we are involved in student mentoring and counseling and what have you. We do a lot. The teaching is just, a fraction of what the lecturer does. but we are going to be performing all our duties except the teaching services.
He again emphasized that such court actions are an attack on academic freedom of tertiary institutions.
We have exhausted all the diplomatic channels available to us to want to, resolve this issue amicably. Unfortunately, people are not interested. We are not even clear what the interest of government is on this matter, and therefore we are withdrawing teaching.
We have sports news coming up shortly. Do stay with us.
Hi, good evening, and it's time to bring you all the latest in the world of sports. There's a lot to bring you. The likes of footballers who are saying, it's not time for them to retire, and other players who are also looking to get more money from tournaments, but the government is going to be slashing them, plus some Champions League news. But let's start off with Ghana captain Asamoah Gyan, and he's adamant he still has a lot to contribute to the Black Stars as the debate over his continuous stay in the team mounts.
Asamoah Gyan has struggled to impart recent Ghana games, triggering suggestions that he may have run his race for the national team. But the record Ghana goal scorer at international level says he is far from done.
For the past 3 years, it has been very difficult for me, talking about fitness level and stuff. But I always try to use my experience and everything. It's not, sometimes somebody might say, oh, he's done. You know, somebody might say, oh, Asamoah Gyan is done. But for me, I don't think I'm done. It's just the circumstances.
Injuries have slowed Gyan down lately, forcing him to miss Ghana's first win of the 2018 World Cup qualifying series in Congo. It added to a frustrating display against the same side in Kumasi, but Gyan argues that judging him based on those two games are simply factoring his international record.
The name Asamoah Gyan has been in the eyes of people for quite a long time, you know, so when a Black Star is playing a game, like everybody expects me to score, which is a normal thing.
Gyan, however, admits time is running out for him, especially with the likes of Raphael Jamina, Jordan Ayew and Richmond Boakye-Yadom providing intense competition. He claims it is not easy replacing someone who has done so much like him.
Asamoah Gyan is not going to play forever for the Black Stars, you know, so definitely there will be somebody who will come in and because there are young players coming up, hungry strikers that are coming up. So definitely we will groom them and then we'll make sure everything will be fine in the future. You know, people paved the way for me to be where I am today. You know, there were a lot of strikers that did what they had to do before I came. And I also set standard for myself and then for the nation. You know, we're talking about top scorer in the World Cup history, African top scorer in the World Cup history. You know, the list goes on and on and on. You know, I've done something for myself and for Ghana. So I think the young ones coming, I think they can also learn from it.
Yes, Jordan Ayew now with a chip. Header, goal!
All right, so now to the Ministry of Sports, they have confirmed that the winning bonus per match for the Black Starlets at the 2017 and the 17 World Cup finals next month remains, that is $1,000. The ministry slashed the amount from $3,000 last May during the CAF Under 17 Nations Cup in Gabon. Deputy Sports Minister Pius Enam Hajide told the team before they left that the ministry will maintain the reviewed bonus structure they instituted while the team was out on national duty at the African Under 17 Nations Cup in Gabon. Now, Ghana's squad left Accra on Wednesday to Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, to prepare for the tournament in India, which will run from October 6 to 28. Some more local football then, and Ghana are into the group stage of the Wafu Cup of Nations after beating Gambia in the knockout opener last Saturday. Though the football hasn't been the best and the crowd have not trooped in to support in their numbers, Aden's reporter of the Ghana League, Felix Remark, believes that now is a time for Ghana to silence critics in the sub-regional tournament.
When you are in the group stage, you know that you won't have the pressure of playing a knockout game. You know you have 3 games to play, 3 games to get maximum points, or 3 games where you can still win a game or 2 games and draw. And you know that if you can qualify, because 2 teams will have to qualify from the group and then make it to the semi-final. When you are playing a one-off knockout game, there's a lot of pressure to, to qualify, and I think that really affected the way we play in the first game. The players were scared of losing the game, and I think technically we were very bad. For me, Coach Maxwell Kunedu didn't impress me in the first game we played.
Are we winning tomorrow?
Winning tomorrow, I think that we have a team that should win that group, but then it will depend on a lot of factors. If you watch our game against Gambia, we created chances that a player like Kwame Kizito should have buried them. So in as much as we blame Maxwell Kunedu for some of the changes or tactics, the players also need to up their game, because this is going to be a very, very tough group, a group with Mali and Guinea and Nigeria. These are powerhouses when it comes to that on the African terrain, and it will take a lot, not just the coach, but the players themselves. They need to up their game.
Vincent Atinga, and Atinga calmly slot the ball home for a first goal of the WAFU tournament.
All right, so now we go straight to the UEFA Champions League, and goals having flying in the first half of the games being played across Europe. Now for the English contingent in there, Liverpool are leading Sevilla by 2-1. Roberto Firmino and Mohamed Salah ensuring that. Manchester City are leading Feyenoord by 3-0. And then Tottenham Hotspur, that is way below there, are also leading Borussia Dortmund, Harry Kane, with the leading goal over there by 2-1. In other results, Maribor are drawing 0-0 at home with Spartak Moscow. Shakhtar Donetsk, the Ukrainian side, are also leading Napoli, that's the Italian giants, by 1-0. FC Porto, really not the kind of force they used to be in Europe, losing at home to Besiktas by 2-1. And then RB Leipzig, for those who do not know this team, that's Red Bull Leipzig. They are a subsidiary of, the Red Bull academies across the world. They are also drawing 1-1 with AS Monaco. AS Monaco, a force in Europe, even as of last season. Real Madrid are also leading upon Nicosia by 1-0. Who else with a goal except for Cristiano Ronaldo? That's exactly where we bring an end to the Sports Bulletin. My name is Thierry Nyan. Thanks for sticking with me.
Welcome back to News 360. Now, Junior Graphic, with support from the Media General Group, has launched the 2017 edition of the National Essay Competition.
For 17 years, Junior Graphic has been at the forefront of helping to inculcate reading habits in the youth. This year's National Essay Writing Competition also forms part of the company's social responsibility to assist children develop their writing skills, improve their grammar, build their vocabulary and their creative abilities. At the media launch of the competition in Accra, editor of Junior Graphic, Mavis Ketcher, encouraged students in basic schools to take keen interest in reading and writing.
Over the years, the chief examiner's reports have complained that the language of the students are poor. Their grammar, their tenses, it's not good. So what we are doing is that we are starting from the basic level, so that once you keep reading and you continue writing, somehow you improve.
Explaining the modalities of the competition, Mavis Ketcher said the best 10 essays from each region will be selected to progress to the next stage, and exciting prizes will be given to winners.
We are going to publish the essay topics in the Junior Graphic. You have 2 essay topics for the preliminary stage. So once you write and you are selected, you will have to go to our regional office to write the final essay. The best 3 will be awarded, and the 7 in the best 10 will also get good prizes, and then we will give 15 consolation prizes.
USAID Education Office Director James Dobson said the U.S. government will partner with governments to improve reading skills among basic schools in the country. Director of Newspapers Graphic Communications Group, Yabuedwa Yebuafo, advised prospective participants to write the essays themselves and avoid cheating. The Director of Marketing Graphic Communications Group, Franklin Sowa, while applauding Corporate Ghana for coming on board to support the competition, entreated more corporate bodies to come on board to ensure each child develops excellent writing and reading skills. The 2017 National Essay Writing Competition, which runs from September 13 to November 1, is being supported by Media General.
We have more news coming up shortly.
Bichabiana maniate, bichabinti maniate rough. Menumbia mama umeka, menya umekanti my fine. I don't go for me go, fade, ade fine. I don't go for me go, fade, ade fine. I'm gonna maniate rough, fade, ade fine. Yeni abani nubino na ye, uchabiana my fine. Whenever you I don't go every day no manum. I don't go for me go.
And too many power and fear doom watching, and says I pain for no. I was drinking spots beer.
And don't go be test. A demufua.